privilege to be here and to be connected with this incredible exhibition. And I thank you all for joining us today for this virtual vernissage with Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay. I would like to thank the staff of Carleton University Art Gallery, Sandra Dick, Fiona Wright, and Curator Heather Anderson as well. For those who are new to Zoom, just a couple little housekeeping notes. You'll notice that you may be on mute right now, but there is a chat button, and there is also live captioning available for this event as well. We are here virtually on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Nation, but while you're in your chat room, if you would like, please share which unceded territory that you yourself are residing in right now. Just a little rundown as well for today's event. First, we will introduce the curator of the exhibit, Heather Anderson. Then after that, we will mix our cocktails that were curated and suggested in theme by Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay. Remember, it's something floral, something sparkling, something bitter, and then something missing. And then after that, there will be a conversation between Dr. Anne Cvetkovich and Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay. And then following that, we'll do a little wrap up. Feel free to send your congratulations about this exhibition or any questions you might have or discussion you want to start in the chat room. And for now, I'd like to introduce Heather Anderson, who is the curator of this exhibition and also the curator of Carleton University Art Gallery. Please welcome Heather.
Hello, welcome everyone to this shared virtual space. My name is Heather Anderson. I would like to begin by acknowledging that CUAG and its home in the city of Ottawa are located on the unceded ancestral territory of the Algonquin Nation. Wherever we find ourselves today, may we express gratitude for the land and acknowledge the traditional and ongoing custodians of these lands. I am committed to, can I have the teleprompter, please? Carrying these reflections forward through reciprocal actions in how I live, work, and care for other members of the community, of which I am a part today and every day. We are honored that CUAG's first virtual launch event is a celebration of Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay's exhibition, I Don't Know Where Paradise Is. Having known Benny from afar and followed his work for 15 plus years, I was thrilled to be able to work closely with him on an exhibition that was to feature his audio work, I Don't Know Where Paradise Is, and other works that arose from his PhD at the Edinburgh College of Art, completed last year, and a new in-progress research project. When the impossibility of Benny's travel to Ottawa became clear, and it was still up in the air whether CUAG would reopen to visitors this autumn, Benny graciously proposed that we radically rethink the exhibition. We embraced the constraints that the pandemic posed, deciding to pare down the exhibition to focus on his evocative work, exploring the private libraries of elder gay scholars and artists. We reimagined an ephemeral, participatory, floral response to the specific chapters of the audio work. Flowers have long been agents in Benny's art practice. He deploys their symbolic and aesthetic properties, the giving of flowers as gifts to convey emotion, and positions them as witnesses to and participants in human relations. Each week from Paris, Benny creates an arrangement comprising flowers and other objects that is inspired by a chapter from his audio work. Meanwhile, a member of the Ottawa Gatineau two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer plus community responds to the same audio chapter and creates a parallel arrangement in collaboration with local florist Kat Kosk. Images accompanied by the specific audio chapters that inspired each arrangement will accrue into an archive on CUAG's website and on Instagram to create a conversation spanning the Atlantic Ocean. It is wholly fitting that Benny's audio work be interpreted in flowers and that the audio work and the floral arrangements activate communication and networks of queer kinship. Listening, collaborating, and creating across time and space take on additional meaning and emotion during the pandemic with its isolation and closures. We are excited for audiences near and far to discover and be a part of the floral conversations week to week. I want to thank Benny for all his thought, care, and creativity in beautifully conceiving this exhibition. It has been a privilege and a pleasure to work with you, especially in this time of online interaction. I also want to thank and welcome Glenn Nuotio of Court Ottawa, as you know, who is hosting this event, Dr. Anne Cvetkovich, Director of Carleton University's Pauline, Jewett Institute of Women's and Gender Studies, who we are thrilled to host in conversation with Benny, Vincent Erdep, an artist, model, and designer, and the first of the floral respondents, Kat Kosk of Blumen Studio, Fiona Wright, who orchestrated the logistical aspects of this event and is coordinating with the respondents, florist, and Benny week to week, and posting all of CUAG's social media, and Jason Laguerre, who is photographing the floral arrangements here in Ottawa. Upcoming floral respondents are John McKinven and Bill Brown, Lydia Collins, Benny Michaud, Sam Lowen. I can't wait to see what you each create. I also want to thank Patrick Lacasse and Kyle Buston for installing the exhibition, and the CUAG team members, Victoria McGlinchey, Daniel Printup, and Sandra Dick. CUAG acknowledges the generous support of the Canada Council for the Arts, the Ontario Arts Council, Carleton University, and the Risa Greenberg Digital Initiatives Fund. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you so much, Heather. Now it's time to make your cocktail, as Benny has suggested. Right now we ask you if you have to combine 4 ingredients to make either a mock or a cocktail to celebrate the opening of this exhibition. The 4 ingredients are something floral, something sparkling, something bitter, and then something missing. You see on the screen? I'll give you a minute to get your stuff together. I'll describe what we did. I have something floral, which I used a shot of Saint-Germain elderflower, some elderflower liqueur. For something sparkling, I went ahead and have just a little bit of sparkling wine, nothing too fancy, just some good Henkel Trocken to mix in. For something bitter, I have, Quart has a community garden project that we're doing. So from this summer, we have some radishes, and I also threw in a little bit of arugula that we grew. And then for something missing, I feel like I want to say Ruth Bader Ginsburg, having watched her funeral this morning. But I'm going to mention my mother's laughter, because she would have had a hoot about this and would have loved this exhibition a lot. So if anyone can let me know who has on the chat, if you have your cocktails ready, I'm going to raise mine. And I would like to raise our glass to this exhibition and to the team that put it together. And here's to Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay. Cheers, everyone. It's great. You know, that was a lot of fun to think of. Oh, Benny.
I'm here too.
Hi.
Thank you.
It's Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay, everybody.
My something floral is a vase, actually. I decided to drink in a vase. And I have champagne and orange peel, which I think qualifies as bitter officially in mixology. And well, something missing, I'll keep it private, but I think a lot of people listening know who that missing person is. So cheers.
Cheers to you, Benny. I'm going to let this arugula and radish sit in here and stew a little bit. And I'll enjoy this as we have our interview. It is a great pleasure of mine to have met and start to know, and now to introduce Dr. Anne Cvetkovich to you. Just a quick introduction about her. She's currently the director of the Pauline Jewett Institute of Women and Gender Studies at Carleton University here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. She's been the Ellen Clayton Garwood Centennial Professor of English and Professor of Women and Gender Studies at the University of Texas at Austin, and she's just come to Ottawa from Austin. We're very happy that she's here. Dr. Cvetkovich is the author of Mixed Feelings, Feminism, Mass Culture, and Victorian Sensationalism, also An Archive of Feelings, Trauma, Sexuality, and Lesbian Public Cultures, and also Depression, A Public Feeling. She has been co-editor of GLQ, a Journal of Lesbian and Gay Studies. And besides her new role here at Carleton, Dr. Cvetkovich's current writing projects focus on the current state of LGBTQ archives and the creative use of them by artists to create counter archives and interventions in public history. I'll see you in the Zoom chat and I'll be back here on screen after this conversation. But for now, I will hand you over to Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay in conversation with Dr. Anne Cvetkovich.
Hi. I think Fiona wants to turn everybody's cameras on first so we can see everybody for a moment. So we might suddenly be bombarded by sort of 50 screens.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Is that happening? There's Heather. There's Sandra.
You gotta do gallery view.
But also the attendees, I think, are Anna. Well, I'll just drink while I wait. This is a beautiful sort of...
If you want to show your video right now, you can by pressing Start Video on the bottom of your Zoom.
Yeah, you can all turn on your cameras so I can see who's there with me. Carol and Cindy and Barbara and Danielle and Alice. And Eben, my cousin, and Aaron and Christopher and Alexis and Aaron and Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Eben, you look great.
I'm taking a picture of this. This is so nice.
Gwendolina, Jillian. Jillian, I'm wearing red for you. Jack, Jen, Alexandra, Sasha, Julie, Lori, Loretta, Christina. This is wild. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Mikey Key, tuning in from Utrecht.
Wow.
Mark Klintberg from Calgary. I don't think there's any room for anybody else. Oh, I see. I can press 1, 2, and I can see more people. Rihanna Vogel, Patrick, Oscar Kirk Hansen, one of the narrators of the audio guide. John Davies, Felicity, Monica, Laura Thaler, Nikita, the programmer of the audio guide. I can't keep track. There's so many people. It's so wonderful. That's wild. Florencia. Hi.
Hi, Benny.
There's so many.
Hi. Hi.
If you have
great.
your, once again, if you have a glass with you and you want to raise cheers to Benny right now for the exhibit.
Hi, Benny.
Cheers to you. Oh, I hear my father's voice.
Hi, Benny. Carrie. Here.
Okay. I think my
I'll
mother's
say hi now too. We'll all say hi.
Congratulations, Benny.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Len.
Sieht man uns denn nicht
Wow.
selbst?
Derek. No, it's really overwhelming.
Ja, wir unten, genau. Ich sage, da muss man immer irgendwas drücken.
Susanne.
Oh, ja. Hello. Cheers.
That's wild.
This is such a great turnout.
I mean, I'm very sorry to not be in Ottawa to see people, but I have people tuning in from Germany, the Netherlands, Slovak Republic, all across Canada, California, Scotland. So nice to see all
Yes,
of
Ami?
you.
Ja, ja.
Genau, komplett ganz lange hier gelebt in
Yes, Rihanna.
Berlin.
Nice. Great.
So should we go back to Anne? I lost her. Where is she?
Lost in this crowd of who's who. This is a great turnout. Wow.
Fabulous.
I'll have my moment.
All
Ja,
right.
da sind ja doch einige dabei.
Now let's
Was
turn
er
it
macht,
over.
da steht da ganz super einsam mit der Wand.
Let's turn it over to Anne.
Und Benny hat
All right, Anne.
All right.
I like the little composition of objects behind you, books, some kind of flowers, maybe a feather.
Yeah. Oh, this is This is actually plants from the Greenbelt near me where I was walking the other day listening to the audio guide.
How nice.
And yeah, I had to have my own floral arrangement, plant arrangement for you. And I think it's also good homage to our connection to land and indigenous ways of knowing. So that's one way in which I understand the value of the floral arrangement in your work.
Nice.
I think people are slowly disappearing. I was looking to, it's so amazing, right? To see all the faces. And then I was looking forward to having this little side-by-side thing where you and I connect across.
I think that one by one, they're slowly reducing in numbers and we're going to become the big screen again.
Okay.
So we can imagine that we're really sitting beside each other, which is something I wish I could do.
Exactly. But Zoom has become our friend for making these connections.
Yeah.
And actually art is a way of making connections, because I'm thinking about the fact that you and I only just met for the first time directly through this project. But as it turns out, I knew your work already. Actually, shout out to John Davies, who's here, who curated the show, I think at Power Plant, maybe where I first saw your work. And then it turns out you know my work. So there's a beautiful way in which books and the shared experience of books and art is a way that we build friendships, even when we haven't met directly.
How we sort of forge kinship bonds by finding each other, by finding each other's artistic gestures and our ideas and being nourished by them, even without maybe direct contact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And books definitely are ways that we, connect across time. So here we are. I think it's just the two of us. I'm gonna
looks like it.
Side with me with your beautiful orange glow in the late night of Paris. So yeah, we chatted last week, which was nice, and there's just a few topics I want to cover and really give the floor to you, but sometimes it is helpful to have someone side by side with you as a kind of provocation to that you have done. And one of the things that I think is going to work really well with this exhibition, even in this reconfigured format, is the use of the audio guide as a medium to be able to take us to different places, to different books, to different experiences. And I had the pleasure, I wrote to you by email, of listening to the audio guide while I was in one of my monastic pandemic loops around my neighborhood. And it's been really, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts actually in recent months. And it is really interesting to have that audio experience while you're in different spaces. And I think that's part of how you conceived of the experience of this show as well. So it's something that I think is going to translate well to pandemic time. And I just wanted to invite you to talk a little bit about both the audio guide for this show and the genre or the medium of the audio guide more generally, because I know you've done a lot of thinking about it. It's actually something that I have, to quote the title of one of my books, mixed feelings about, because there are ways in which the audio guide can play into very conventional notions of museum and archive format, where there's this kind of authoritative information coming at you and
absolutely
overloading the sensory experience of the space. And I think you're trying to do something different with it. So I would love to talk about that.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I mean, my history as an artist is very involved with the human voice. And before I started working with audio guides, I made videos and sound installations and pieces that were very concerned with singing, narrating, screaming, and just an interest in the voice as a sort of expressive form. And I had the opportunity to work with a museum and its audio guide about 7 years ago, and kind of discovered the vast potential of the audio guide form. I'm the kind of person who generally doesn't listen to an audio guide. And when I tell people that I work with audio guides, often they say, oh, I never listen to audio guides. And I think that there's a lot of people who feel that the kinds of conversations that they're trying to have with art or artifacts or history are actually being shut down by the sort of authoritative voice of the audio guide that usually just tells kind of traditional histories, dominant stories that kind of reproduces dominant ways of spectatorship and objectifying artworks. But still, there's such a nice intimacy to the audio guide. There's this sense of companionship. There's a voice speaking directly into your ears, telling you where to look, what to think, how to position your body even. And I felt that it was just a media form with a lot of special potential. And so the kind of work that I've been doing with museums and their audio guides is often about trying to tune in to some of the phenomenological aspects of the museum experience. Also to give different readings of artworks, to tell minor histories, to pose challenging questions about what the artwork represents and what the spectatorship of the visitor, how it acts upon art. So I found it a very kind of rich territory for exploring feelings, erotic impulses, critical engagement with history, and maybe new modes of meaning making as part of the museum experience. And although the project for the CUAG exhibition isn't an audio guide for a museum setting, instead it's meant to be for the private libraries of a series of loosely interconnected elder gay scholars in a few different cities, Amsterdam, London, Montreal, and Paris. I somehow wanted to explore this potential of giving a didactic experience, a sensorial experience, an emotional experience to navigate all of the different stories and histories and feelings that arise in these libraries, to try to mediate encounters, multi-layered encounters with these collections.
So maybe we should just clarify for people, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves even by starting and not the collections, but we'll get there. Do we want to just explain to people that they'll be able to download the app or to listen to some of the segments of this audio guide piece as part of this show, right?
Sure. So the audio guide itself is sort of, it has its own dedicated website, and you can go to the website and listen to a multi-chaptered audio guide with about 25 different encounters with the library off the website. You can also install it as an app onto your mobile device or your tablet. And then the website, the CUAG website, also each week will feature one chapter from the audio, which is what is being responded to in Flowers, both by myself in Paris in my studio, but then also as this participatory gesture involving members of the queer community in Ottawa who interpret this audio chapter with the help of a professional florist, Kat Kosk at Blumen Studio. So there's sort of many different ways in which you can enter the library through the audio guide, through the flowers. Yeah.
Just a couple of things that I noticed and that I would recommend to people as they experience these chapters, either each week, or actually there's going to be many ways to experience the show, right? You could just do one little chapter, you could do a whole hour. But one of the things that I think is distinctive is the way in which you use not just words, but sound, and particularly the hum is one of the really great oral components. Another thing that's really interesting is that We don't actually, I think the audio guide, this is so perfect for the conditions we find ourselves in. While it's an audio guide for these libraries, the idea is that we're not actually there. So it's great to have an audio guide that doesn't require that the objects be present, but rather that you conjure that which is missing to invoke one of the ingredients of the cocktail through this oral experience. And then because I'm interested in where, as you mentioned, where the body is or where the senses are, just what your thoughts are for how people might experience the audio guide bodily, like where can our bodies be? What can they be doing?
Those are great questions. I mean, it's been very interesting to see how my audio guide work, this project and other projects, which have always been very site-specific in their conception. They're often about artworks that you're supposed to be standing in front of in a museum, or very real spaces, these libraries. It's been interesting to explore ways in which they can be experienced off-site, like if there's a kind of non-site specificity about them, or a site non-specificity. I'm never quite sure how to formulate that. And as the pandemic kind of unfolded, a lot of the museums that I've worked with and their audio guides put my audio guide project online for sort of public access. And people were able to sort of have encounters with their collections from their own homes, listening to me conjure the artworks through the audio guide. In terms of sort of like the body of the listener and sort of the, I don't know, the ideal conditions, it's true that the libraries I'm describing, you're never going to listen to the audio guide in these places. And in fact, because they're in many different cities, the audio guide tries to create a sort of intersection in which you're encountering Montreal and London and Amsterdam sort of at the same time. And again, I think that the language on one hand tries to conjure very clearly, describe things, give you a lot of sort of sensory details. But then I think the script also constantly refers to the body of the listener. You're told to kneel down, or to listen carefully, or to search within your own body to feel something, or like you say, to hum along with this vibration that I suggest comes from the books, from the library. So there's these sort of constant invitations to connect with one's own body, to make the experience embodied. And I think that that's part of what makes maybe the non-site specific experience possible. But I also think it's one of the ways that I try to have a queer approach to what the audio guide can do. That it's not about reproducing this subject-object relationship with an artwork or an artifact, but something that's much more embodied, that involves my own memories, my own past experiences of spectatorship, about turning to my desire and my erotic impulses as meaning-making tools to center feelings, physical and emotional. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think those are some of my thoughts about how the listener's body is hopefully activated or mobilized in their experience of the material.
Yeah, that's great. And it speaks perfectly to the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which was what happens when artists visit libraries and archives and this is why I love your work so much, and it's part of my own research to look at what artists do in archives and libraries, because I think they actually can, through the creative process, come up with better exhibitions and better curatorial practices than some of the professionals. With all due respect to the CUAG folk, who also are very imaginative in what they bring into their spaces. But yeah, that's really a link between us, right? It might be one of the reasons why you've read my work, because I'm interested in the nexus of art, archives, affect, and activism, all the A words. And I wanted to just have this as an opportunity to go to those, to think about why you chose those libraries, what's important about that as a research project, because you do a form of research creation, how you help to publicize the amazing collections of people like Gerd Heckma in Amsterdam, and Adrian Rifkin in London, Tom Watt in Montreal, Hervé in Paris, and so on. What's special about having you as an artist move into those spaces, and how might that take us also in a queer way to this term you use in the audio guide that I love, which is bibliosexuality. Yes, from bibliophilia to bibliosexuality. And I've got my books here that I love. Yeah, talk about that a bit.
Sure. That's great. Thank you. I mean, the interesting thing is that I'm not really a bibliophile, and I'm not a very voracious reader, I have to admit. But I do turn to archives because, like many artists, many queer artists, some of whom are tuning in today, I think about Mark Klintberg, Susanna Schmidt, Laurie Young, I think there's Connie Carlson Lundgren, a few of my colleagues who are here. I think that I have a very strong desire to touch across time to figures, ideas, and practices from the queer past to help me understand my place in history, to forge kinship bonds that are trans-historical. And so I enter the archives really searching for contact, searching for my reflection, searching for ideas. And I mean, I think that entering into the libraries of these scholars who really are bibliophiles, who are extremely well-read, whereas I'm less so, there was really a feeling of being a kind of imposter and not really knowing how to navigate the kind of volume of material that I would encounter in these libraries. I mean, it's very interesting that there are many queer thinkers, yourself included, who acknowledge that the queer archive by its very nature is full of gaps, of missing material, of things that aren't able to enter the archive, that are ephemeral, feelings, etc. And yet I was encountered with these libraries that were overflowing with material, like it didn't feel like there were any gaps. And I mostly felt quite sort of discouraged by my inability to really get to know what there is. Even after multiple visits, I had like no grasp, no handle of this material. And so I think I had to really come up with new methods or artistic methods to navigate, not archival, not art historical, not historical, you know, not official, which is why tuning into feelings, tuning into sexual impulses, using cruising a little bit as a method, as a research method, became really important for me. And I was really glad to be an artist in the library who could sort of figure out my own way, as opposed to having to do some really, archivally correct, indexical encounter with the libraries. And so I think that those methods not only helped me navigate, but they also became part of the way in which I constructed the final artwork. And so in the introduction, I say to the listener, there's no way to fully know this library. You can't see everything, there's just too much. And I think that one of the aesthetics of the project that some people will already know about is that the website shuffles the material that is available. There's actually about 25 chapters, but each time you listen to it, you only get 6 or 7. It's something that I worked on with the programmer Nikita Gaidakov, who's also, I think, tuning in from Edinburgh. And so that style of shuffling, of not letting anybody have a definitive experience, an authoritative, full experience, was a sort of artistic method of encountering the archive that came from my own research process of sort of figuring out my way through the archive. I'm not sure if that answers your question exactly, but those are some of the thoughts.
Yeah, and it's not even about answering a question, right? We're just like
Yeah.
back and forth. So I'm just like sending you a little something and seeing what happens. I hope we have time for one more, because I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk a little bit about the flowers. And I have books and flowers together. And actually, it's interesting to hear you say that you're not a bibliophile or you don't read that much. And I think that doesn't matter, because I actually think books can be like sacred objects, right? Where we hold them or fondle them. We look at the covers, even if we don't read them. And they have a kind of animacy, like I think objects do. And so that, to me, takes us to flowers and plant life. And I mentioned to you that I've become very interested in archival collections that have live things in them, like botanical matter or specimens. So I've come across collections where people have pressed flowers or taken their hair or otherwise tried to incorporate stuff that is more connected to living things, human bodies, animate worlds out there, that does also press up against the limits of the conventional archive as a kind of mausoleum sometimes that deadens things. So that's why I'm kind of intrigued by your bringing of the flowers into the fore and staging these encounters between flowers and books or libraries as part of this piece. And especially this is going to be the case with this Carleton iteration, as you've conceived to have these arrangements being created each week.
Yeah, I mean, flowers have appeared in my art practice relatively recently, although they've been a part of my life forever. And I work a lot in collaboration with the artist Mark Klintberg on sort of floral gestures. You know, the original exhibition that I had imagined for Carleton created a sort of abstract scenography that people could look at and move around while listening to the audio guide. And it involved some photographs that I staged, some collages with epistolary, like letters and other material that were connected to my correspondence with my hosts and their libraries, and a bunch of floral arrangements that sort of, abstractly suggested some of the themes or objects that people encounter in the audio guide. And I think that the proposal that, the idea that Heather and I came up with to have this sort of weekly floral arrangement that responds to a featured audio chapter, it's such a new idea that I don't yet know what it does and how it works. Like we're about to find out over the next few months how this sort of operates, how it acts upon the audio guide, if it makes sense, if it just ends up feeling decorative, if it helps us tune in more to the emotions of the audio guide, and if we actually feel the library more through the flowers. I'm not sure. But one story that I like to tell, especially when you use the word mausoleum, because I didn't actually find botanical material between the pages of the books that I was looking at in the library. But I did often arrive at the home of my hosts with a gift of flowers. It's something that I do in general. I'm a real flower offerer. And I often used the giving of flowers as a device to maybe distract from the fact that I'm not that well read, that I'm not I don't have this vast knowledge about like queer history and queer literature that the librarians themselves do, because if they would talk about things, I often just didn't know anything. But I would arrive with these flowers and it would sort of direct attention away from me and onto the flowers, and we could enjoy the sort of sensory visual pleasures of them. But in the case of Geert and Matthias, the couple in Amsterdam, whose library is the most focal in the audio guide and is where I spent the most of my research time, they kept all my floral arrangements and dried them. And I mean, I visited their home like maybe 20 times over 4 years. And little by little, they created this sort of, like you say, mausoleum of dried flower arrangements that sort of occupied space in and among the books of their library. And I haven't quite figured out what that means, but it was a very interesting development or sort of a phenomenon. And I mean, I think a lot of gifts of flowers as a relational material. And because I'm very interested in queer kinship bonds across time and space, and also building bonds of kinship with my hosts, these flowers became sort of the monuments of that, of my research, but also of the growing bond between us. Does that speak a little bit to what you're...
I think that's great background for people to carry forward, and I love that we don't quite know what's going to happen, right? It's going to across the run of the show, but I'll be really excited to see the photographic record of the arrangements, and I hope I'll also be able to visit the space to see them live. But I do think you've given me a lot to think about in terms of the way in which I've used the notion of bibliographic altar to describe the way in which we pull materials together that are meaningful to make new ideas. And flower arrangement is a bit like that as well, that you're curating different materials. I know some of your arrangements have included random objects or things that you wouldn't expect to find in a floral arrangement, which I think is another queer touch. And so, yeah, I think I'll just kind of stop there so we don't run over time, but obviously we could continue the conversation.
Yeah, I wish we could talk on and on. I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
It's really a pleasure to have the chance to talk to you. And as you acknowledged, you know, your writing was very important in helping me to understand what I was doing and to develop my methodologies and to think about queer ways of encountering the archive, and also about thinking about what's missing, the gaps, as a material, and to become interested in the materiality of absence and missing and ephemera, and of course to let my feelings lead me as I navigated, and to kind of treat that as a valid way to be an artist in the archives by leading with feelings. So I'm very grateful for your scholarship, and it's wonderful to encounter you this way.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that idea of the materiality of absence, which I think is very poignant right now for us living in times of pandemic and social distancing. So I think, you know, in ways that you couldn't have anticipated, this show is actually a beautiful one for this time, and we need to have art in whatever forms we can have it in this moment. So thank you.
And my last thought is that don't drink champagne in a vase. You get drunk really quickly. It's way too much. I thought it would be a playful touch, but it's like way too much.
Well, it's late enough you can go to sleep now.
Yeah, it's like 11 o'clock in Paris. So.
Is Fiona or do we just close it out?
I thought we were going to see everybody again. Well, there's Glenn.
Hi, welcome
Yeah,
back.
we should see everybody again for a minute.
I think we should too. If everyone would like to open up their cameras again. Curator Heather Anderson.
Woohoo, Heather.
Director Sandra Dick.
Yay.
Feels like an award speech.
The team at CUAG is incredible. I mean, this couldn't have been possible without their hard work and creativity and willingness to go along with this ever evolving exhibition concept. So thank you, everybody at the gallery.
I'd also like to take this time to thank Fiona right behind the scenes and the Carleton Tech team who are behind the cameras and making everything run so smoothly, and thanks again. I would like to remind everyone here to, oh, hello, there's someone young waving. Hello, welcome to the exhibition.
Jack.
So I'd like to thank everyone who was able to take time to come to I Don't Know Where Paradise Is today, and this wonderful launch for the incredible Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay, who has been one of my favorite, although now in Paris, one of my favorite Canadian artists for probably the last 20 years, if I'm allowed to say that. Anyhow,
Wow.
I would like to remind everyone that you can go to CUAG.ca, that's CUAG.ca, and I believe Fiona has put the links up in the chat. And this also coincides with another exhibit that's going on right now called To Be Continued, Troubling the Queer Archive. Yeah, and that is happening as well until, that opens from 24th of September until the 12th of December, I believe. To sign up to visit the gallery under these new pandemic COVID-19 rules, you can go to cuag.ca/events where you'll get some information. You can also sign up for the newsletter, which is the best way to get the information that you need regularly. Once more, I'm going to get my drink, just 1 sec.
I love seeing all of your beautiful faces. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's very special.
Thanks again to Dr. Ann Cvetkovich and to Benny for that enlightening talk. Thanks. Once more, cheers to Benny Nemerofsky Ramsay for this exhibition. And congratulations. Congratulations also to gallery curator and curator of this exhibition, Heather Anderson.
Yay.
Okay,
Hi,
is
Dad.
there anything else to add? I think
Hi,
that's...
Dad.
What?
I'm saying
Hi, Dad.
to my father who's tuning in from...
Hi, Benny's dad. Is there anything you want to say, Dad?
He's on mute.
Okay.
As it should be.
All right, well, on that, it's great that everyone took time to be here today. Again, go to cuag.ca. We forgot to mention as well, I forgot to mention, this first response is from Blumen Studio, is the florist, and Vincent Erdeth is the local member of the LGBTQ 2+ community who has responded to the audio guide of this first week. So every week, this will continue with a new member of the community responding, and thank you also in studio for your participation in this. My name is Glenn Nuotio. I'd like to thank CUAG again and all the team for including me in this. And I hope you have a really safe and well, you stay safe and well in this. I think this is a stronger drink than I thought. Anyway, and I'm not even in Paris. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone at CUAG, and I wish you well, and please come see the exhibit and cuag.ca for all the information you need. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Love you, Benny.
Oh, love you.
Bye, Benny.
Bye. Love you all.
Bye,
Thank
Benny.
you.
Congratulations.
Bye,
Hi, Benny.
Love you.
Bye, Benny.
Good.
You look like a hot slut.
Hi, Benny. Gorgeous. Thank you for having me as part of this project.
Oscar, thank you for lending your voice to the project.